Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at spiral dynamics. It's a model for understanding how human values and consciousness, kind of evolve over time. And our guide for this deep dive is this document simply called spiraldynamics.pdf.
And what's really interesting about this document is that it kind of comes at it from an integral perspective. So, looking at how all the pieces of this model, fit together into like a bigger picture.
Yeah, so we're not just talking about like these separate stages of development. We're talking about how they connect, how they interact.
Exactly. And it's when you start to do that, that's when things get really interesting. Think of like a spiral staircase, right? So as individuals and societies, kind of grow and develop, they move through these different levels of consciousness, and each level has like its own worldview and priorities.
Okay, so we're not talking about these levels as like rigid boxes that you're stuck in forever.
No, no. I mean, it's more like a flowing wave.
Yeah.
So you might be primarily operating at one level, but you still have traits of other levels, depending on the situation.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. So let's dive into these levels, I guess. The document outlines 8, each represented by like a color. So we've got beige, purple, red, blue, orange, green, yellow, turquoise,
Yeah,
and there are like even higher levels beyond these.
there are.
But we'll get to those later. So let's just start, at the very beginning, like with beige.
Okay, so beige, that's like the most basic level, right? It's all about survival, pure survival. Think about our earliest ancestors, right?
Mm.
Or even, newborns. It's just about meeting those like immediate needs, food, water, shelter.
So it's like being in constant fight or flight mode.
Yeah, exactly. Like the world is just perceived as, a series of threats and opportunities, all about survival. And there's no real sense of self beyond like the immediate need to stay alive.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty intense. So what comes after beige?
So next we move to purple. And this is where we start to see the emergence of, tribalism, magical thinking, rituals. Safety and security come from belonging to a group. And the world is, explained through myths and superstitions.
So you might see this in like ancient tribes who relied on rituals to appease the spirits, or even, today, some close-knit communities where like traditions and superstitions still
Yeah.
hold a lot of influence.
Exactly. Purple is all about finding comfort and belonging, in a world that can feel pretty overwhelming and unpredictable.
Okay, on to red. This one sounds a little more assertive.
Yeah, so red is often called like the power god stage, right?
Hmm.
And it's characterized by, egocentricity, impulsiveness. It's very much focused on immediate gratification. This is where individuals, they assert their dominance, they challenge authority, they seek power and pleasure.
Right, I can see this in, like historical figures, like conquerors who were driven by ambition. But, how does a level like this function in a modern society? I mean, is there room for this kind of thinking in today's world?
Yeah, that's a great question. And while it's true that red can be disruptive, right? Even destructive at times, it also represents like a crucial step in the development of individuality. Think about like adolescents pushing boundaries or entrepreneurs who are willing to take big risks. There's a certain energy, like a drive associated with red, that can actually be channeled in really positive ways.
So it's not necessarily about, becoming a warlord, but it's about developing that sense of agency and self-determination.
Yeah, exactly. Red is about breaking free from, the constraints of the tribe and forging your own path.
Okay, that makes sense. So what comes after this, like very individualistic red stage?
So from that raw power of red, we transition to blue. And this is where a desire for order and structure, kind of emerges. So think about societies with like strict rules, hierarchies, where meaning is found in a larger system, often through like religion or law or a very strict moral code.
Right. This makes me think of like historical periods where, empires or religions held a very powerful sway over people's lives. Like it's about finding that stability and certainty, within a clearly defined framework.
Right, exactly. Blue is about like sacrificing those individual desires for the good of the collective, finding security in a world that's governed by these, very clear rules and consequences.
It was like a reaction to the potential chaos of, the red level.
Exactly. Blue seeks to create order out of that potential chaos, right? And establish like a stable foundation for society.
Okay, so how does this like blue mindset evolve? What's the next step on this spiral?
Well, so you've got this, structure, you've got order in place, and then from there, you start to see the rise of individualism again. But it takes a different form this time. This is where we transition to orange.
And orange is the level that we were kind of, associating with um, like the modern world earlier. Sort of.
Exactly, yeah. So orange is the stage of like achievement, rational thinking, a focus on individual success. Science, logic, innovation, they all take center stage. Individuals are striving to, climb that ladder of success, improve their material well-being.
Yeah, yeah. I could definitely relate to that. Like the entrepreneurial spirit, the drive to succeed, and the belief that, you can achieve anything if you just work hard enough.
Exactly. Orange is about using your talents, your intellect, to achieve your goals and make a mark on the world.
But it also seems like orange could be a little bit, well, I know, cutthroat. Like all that competition and striving for success.
Yeah.
Doesn't that come with some, downsides?
You're right. It's not all sunshine and roses. I mean, while orange has driven a lot of progress and innovation, it can sometimes lead to, a very narrow focus on material success, at the expense of like community and well-being. And this is where, some of the critiques of like capitalism and consumerism come into play.
So how does spiral dynamics like address this potential imbalance? Like what happens when people start to kind of, question those values of the orange level?
Well, that's where we see the emergence of green. And this stage represents a shift from, that individual achievement to more of a collective well-being. It emphasizes empathy, social justice. There's a desire for harmony, inclusivity.
So like the rise of, social movements that are advocating for, human rights or environmental protection, like it's about recognizing the interconnectedness of all things.
Yeah.
And striving to create a world where everyone feels valued and respected.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Green is about moving beyond that individualistic mindset of orange, right? And recognizing the importance of community, cooperation, compassion.
But, I imagine green isn't without its own challenges, right?
You're absolutely right. And this is where understanding, the integral nature of spiral dynamics becomes like really important. Because green, without the integration of, those previous levels, can sometimes become overly focused on like consensus building, avoiding conflict, even when, tough decisions need to be made.
So it's not about like rejecting the achievements of orange or, the order of blue, but it's about finding a way to like integrate those strengths into a more, I don't know, a more holistic and compassionate worldview.
Precisely. And that's where, the next level yellow comes into play.
And yellow is that integral stage we mentioned at the beginning, right? The one that's all about seeing, like the bigger picture.
Exactly. Exactly. Yellow represents a significant leap in consciousness. It's about, systems thinking, understanding the interconnectedness of, literally everything. And it's about recognizing the value of all of those previous stages.
Right. Okay. That sounds like a very mature and complex way of thinking. But, from what you mentioned earlier, it seems like only a small percentage of people actually like operate at this level.
That's true. Yeah. Yellow is, it's a relatively recent emergence, I think, in human consciousness. And it takes a lot of, personal growth and self-awareness to reach this stage. But even if you're not, primarily operating at yellow, understanding this level can help you appreciate the complexity of, of human systems and just the importance of like integrating different perspectives.
Yeah. Okay. This all sounds fascinating. I'm already starting to see how these levels, might play out in my own life and in the world around me. But before we go any further, I think it's time to address something that's probably on your mind. Like, how do you know what level you're at? Like, are there tests for this?
Yeah. That's a great question. And you know what? It's something that this document actually dives into in quite a bit of detail.
Really?
And what's really interesting is that, it raises some serious doubts about the accuracy of a lot of the spiral dynamics tests that are, out there.
Really? I've seen those quizzes online that, they promise to tell you your spiral dynamics type, in like 5 minutes. Why would they be accurate?
Well, so the document points out that, a lot of these tests, they rely on self-reporting, right? They use like multiple choice formats, which can be, very misleading because someone might, score high on, say, green values because those are seen as like socially desirable, but their actual behavior, might not reflect those values at all.
So it's not as simple as, just just checking off boxes on a questionnaire.
Right, right, exactly. Understanding like your own level of development and, the levels of others, it requires, careful observation, honest self-reflection, a willingness to like really consider the complexities of human behavior.
Okay, so those like quick fix, online tests are probably not the best way to go. It sounds like understanding spiral dynamics is it's more about like ongoing observation, reflection than it is about getting like a definitive label.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, it's a journey of self-discovery. It's not, a destination that you reach by taking a quiz.
Right, right. Okay. So we've covered the first 5 levels of the spiral. Beige, purple, red, blue, and orange. We've seen how each level kind of builds upon the previous one. And we've seen how, understanding these levels can really help us make sense of, human behavior, both individually and collectively. But we've still got, 3 more levels to explore, including, that mysterious turquoise level. And the document even hints at a level beyond that. So before we continue our ascent up the spiral, I think it's time to take a moment to just like let all this sink in.
Yeah. Take a moment and think about these levels, What stands out to you? Do any of these levels resonate with, like, your own experiences or your observations of the world? Hashtag TTS The Deep Dive, episode 2025-0113, part 2 of 3.
Okay, so where do we go from yellow? I'm ready to keep climbing the spiral staircase of consciousness.
Well, from, the systems thinking and integrative awareness of yellow, we move to turquoise.
Yeah. And this level, it's described in the document as, having this holistic worldview, right? Experiencing the world as like a unified whole. It's like taking that systems thinking from yellow and like infusing it with, I don't know, a sense of awe and wonder.
Exactly, yeah. If yellow's about, understanding the interconnectedness of everything, turquoise is about like actually experiencing that interconnectedness. And the document mentions that, individuals at this turquoise level, they often have like these profound spiritual experiences, a very deep understanding of the interconnectedness of like all life.
Okay, I'm trying to wrap my head around this.
Yeah.
So does that mean turquoise is like all about, mysticism and spirituality? What does that like look like in the real world?
Yeah, it's not necessarily about, traditional religion or dogma. It's more about like a direct experience of oneness with the universe. Imagine like a scientist who's also deeply spiritual, someone who can appreciate both the logical order of the universe, but also the mystery that lies beyond our, current understanding.
This is like spirituality and science, like merging together.
Exactly. Yeah. Turquoise is like that place where those, seemingly separate domains can, not only coexist, but like actually inform each other.
Now, the document also hints at a lever beyond turquoise, which, is barely even conceptualized at this point. It mentions a coral level.
Right.
But it sounds like we're like venturing into, uncharted territory here.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, coral is so new and so rare, that we don't even really have a clear understanding of what it entails. The document kind of suggests that it might involve like a transpersonal perspective, where the individual ego dissolves even further. And there's a sense of like merging with the cosmos. It's like, trying to explain the concept of color to someone who's never seen before.
Yeah. It's definitely pushing the boundaries of my understanding. But, it speaks to the idea that human consciousness is constantly evolving. There's always more to discover. There's always more to experience.
Absolutely. And these higher levels, turquoise and coral, they point to like this vast potential, for growth and evolution that lies within, I think, each of us.
Okay. Before we, get too lost in the cosmic realms here, let's bring things back down to Earth for a moment. The document also talks about some of the practical applications of spiral dynamics.
Yeah.
It mentions how it can be used to, understand individuals, organizations, even like entire societies. So what do you think is the most valuable application of this model?
That's a great question. I think, one of the most powerful aspects of spiral dynamics is its ability to like foster empathy and understanding, by recognizing that people at different levels, they're going to have different motivations, different values, different ways of like interacting with the world. And when we recognize that, we can start to like bridge those divides and communicate more effectively.
So instead of like getting frustrated when someone doesn't see things the same way we do, we can use this model to kind of, understand where they're coming from and maybe find like common ground.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, for example, imagine, you're leading a team and you need to like motivate them to achieve a goal. Like a one-size-fits-all approach it's unlikely to be very effective because, someone at a blue level might be motivated by like clear rules, a sense of duty. While someone at like an orange level, they might be driven by, the opportunity for achievement, for recognition. And someone at a green level, might be inspired by a shared sense of purpose and a desire to make a positive impact on the world.
So it's about understanding the like underlying values and motivations that drive people's behavior.
Exactly. And that understanding can be like incredibly helpful in a variety of contexts, from personal relationships to like business negotiations to global diplomacy.
And the document also mentions that spiral dynamics can be applied to understanding like cultural and societal shifts.
Yeah.
Could you give us an example of that?
Yeah, sure. Think about the rise of like social media. From a spiral dynamics perspective, you could see this as, a reflection of like the green level's emphasis on connection and community.
Yeah.
But you could also argue that social media has been like co-opted by the orange level, using it as a platform for self-promotion and marketing.
That's interesting. So you can like see how different levels might be interacting and like influencing each other within like a single phenomenon.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's what makes spiral dynamics such a powerful tool for understanding the complexities of our world. It's not about saying one level is, better or worse, but it's about recognizing, the different stages of development and how they interact.
Yeah, that brings up an important point. I mean, it's easy to kind of fall into the trap of thinking that like the higher levels are somehow superior to the lower levels.
Right.
But from what I'm gathering, that's not really the point of this model, is it?
You're absolutely right. Each level has its own strengths and its own limitations. And they all play a role, in the overall evolution of consciousness. It's like that spiral staircase, Each step is necessary to reach the next level. Just as a building needs like a strong foundation, to support its higher floors, so too does human consciousness require, the grounding of those earlier levels to support the emergence of, the later stages.
Okay. So instead of like judging or dismissing those who might be operating at different levels, we can like appreciate the role they play in the larger tapestry of human experience.
Exactly. Yeah. It's about embracing the diversity of human consciousness and recognizing that we're all on this journey together, even if we're at different points along the path.
Yeah. And I'm also thinking back to our discussion about those, spiral dynamics tests. If we connect this back to like the bigger picture, it seems like those tests might give us like a glimpse into someone's, dominant level, but they can't really capture the full complexity of an individual's, consciousness or the dynamic interplay of different levels, within them.
That's a really insightful point. Yeah. It's like trying to understand a symphony, by listening to a single note. Yeah. You might get a sense of the overall tone, but you're going to miss, the richness and depth of the full composition.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And the document actually provides some interesting examples of how these tests can be misleading. For instance, it mentions how some people might like score high on green values because they intellectually understand, those concepts, but their actions might not actually reflect those values in their daily lives.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's a reminder that like true understanding comes from looking beyond, those surface level assessments and engaging in, deeper reflection and observation.
So it's not enough to just like label yourself as a certain type based on a test. It's about that ongoing self-reflection, that willingness to like question your own assumptions.
Yeah, and I think that's where the real value of spiral dynamics lies. It's not about, labeling people or putting them in boxes, but rather it's about using this model as a tool for understanding, for empathy, and for growth. Yeah. Both for ourselves and for the world around us.
Okay. I'm seeing how this model can be applied in so many different ways. It's like a framework for understanding everything from, personal growth to cultural shifts to like global conflict.
Yeah, and that's just scratching the surface. We've explored the spiral, we've delved into the levels, we've even touched on, the limitations of some of the assessment methods. But what final nuggets of wisdom does this document offer? Hashtag TTS, the deep dive episode 2025-0113, part 3 of 3.
So, we've been on this incredible journey through the evolution of human consciousness, and I'm curious what this document, kind of offers in terms of like takeaways, like how do we put all this knowledge into action?
Well, one of the key messages I get from this is, spiral dynamics is most valuable when we use it as, a lens, like for understanding and navigating the complexities of, human interaction.
Yeah.
It's not just about intellectualizing these concepts. It's about actually, applying them to your life, to your relationship.
So it's like a roadmap for personal and collective growth.
Yeah.
Like understanding these different levels of consciousness, you can become a more effective communicator, a more effective leader, a more effective problem solver.
Precisely. Yeah. I mean, imagine you're trying to like resolve a conflict, right?
Right.
Understanding the other person's, level of consciousness can help you, kind of tailor your approach and find solutions that resonate with their worldview. Or think about, working on a project with a team, recognizing, the dominant levels within that team can help you, kind of leverage everyone's strengths and create a more harmonious and productive work environment.
And the document also emphasizes, everyone's on their own like unique journey along this spiral. There's no like right or wrong place to be.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a crucial point, Each level has its own, gifts and challenges, and it's about honoring the diversity of human experience. You can't force someone to move to, a higher level before they're ready, and you shouldn't judge them for being at a different, stage of development.
Yeah. This reminds me of a quote from the document that really stuck with me. It says, "It's not about being better than someone else, but rather about understanding how to best interact with and support others based on their current worldview."
That's a powerful reminder. And it speaks to the potential for using spiral dynamics to create, more compassionate, more understanding relationships, both personally and professionally.
And I think one of the most, valuable insights from this whole deep dive has been, the emphasis on the limitations of those spiral dynamics tests. I mean, we've talked about, how those quick fix online quizzes can be, misleading. But the document like takes it a step further. It points out that a lot of these tests are like created from a, an orange or green perspective,
right?
Which means they might not accurately, represent the nuances of the higher levels.
Yeah, it's like trying to judge a masterpiece, from the perspective of someone who has only ever seen stick figures.
Right.
They might not have the vocabulary or, the experience to fully appreciate the complexity and the beauty of the artwork.
Yeah, that's such a great analogy.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that, you should approach spiral dynamics with, a critical mind and be wary of any, tests or assessments that claim to offer a definitive answer to your level of consciousness.
Yeah. Instead, focus on engaging in deep self-reflection, observing your own patterns of, thinking and behavior, and seeking guidance from, those who have a more comprehensive understanding of the model.
So true understanding comes from lived experience, from that ongoing process of self-discovery.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a journey, not a destination.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into spiral dynamics.
Yeah.
We've explored the spiral, we've unpacked the levels, we've even debunked some myths about testing.
And most importantly, I hope we've sparked a sense of curiosity in you, a desire to learn more about this fascinating model.
I'm definitely feeling that. This document has given me a whole new framework for understanding myself and the world around me. It's like having a new set of lenses to see the patterns and the connections that were always there, but I was missing before.
Yeah, and remember, this is just the beginning. There's a wealth of information out there, for those who want to explore spiral dynamics in more depth.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final thought-provoking question.
Yeah.
Inspired by this whole deep dive. We've talked about how human consciousness is constantly evolving,
right?
And that we have the potential to to move to higher and higher levels of of awareness. So here's the question. What role do you want to play in that evolution?
It's a big question, but one worth, pondering. How can you use this knowledge of spiral dynamics, to create a more compassionate, more understanding, more evolved world?
Yeah, that's something for all of us to think about. As we navigate, the complexities of our time, let's remember the wisdom of the spiral. Let's embrace the diversity of human experience. Let's strive for understanding, and let's continue to grow and evolve, together.
And perhaps as we continue, our individual journeys up this spiral, we'll discover even more about the potential of, human consciousness.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into spiral dynamics. Until next time, keep seeking knowledge, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep.